Welcome to episode 592 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and I have the pleasure of being joined again by Ines Braga Sampaio, because like clockwork, the Barça Femení are back in the Women's Champions League final again, their fourth straight final, this time in Bilbao, up in the Basque Country against Lyon. The quadruple is on the line, having already won the league, the Copa de la Reina, 8-0 last weekend against Real Sociedad and the Spanish Super Cup. So just one hurdle remains. But it does feel like the last hurdle in terms of this team's, we'll say, big legacy, Ines, as well, because they have not yet beaten the best team in the history of the women's game. They're 0-4 all-time against Lyon. And I think the stakes of just that, we're going to talk a lot about the legacies and all that stuff throughout the show, but I think that is the big headline coming into this, is that, yes, Barcelona have been the team of the 2020s, but Lyon were the team of the 2000 or the aughts, and then the 2010s. And this is the one team that the Barça Femení have yet to conquer.
Yeah, it's like this, as you were saying all of that, I was remembering, the seven works of Hercules. This is kind of like the final beast that Barcelona need to slay to really. They've cemented their place in the history of women's football. There's no question about that. But it's their final hurdle, no doubt. And I like that you stated that Lyon are the best team in the history of women's football. It is true. I think no one will ever take that away from them, because the sheer magnitude of what they've done for the past 20 years or 15 years is it's incredible. And, I think people need to respect that, regardless of whether they're Lyon fans, Barca fans, anyone else's fans. We need to respect the fact, because it is a fact. This one, so many, actually so little things are objective in football, so many things are subjective. But if there's one objective thing, in my opinion, it is that Lyon are the best team in the history of women's football. Along with, we could say, the USWNT, on another, obviously on another level, on another dimension entirely. But yeah, I mean, it's like we said, it's a final hurdle. Barcelona have beaten so many teams. They've beaten Chelsea twice already, in that final, that very first final, and that first win, and now in the semifinals. And Lyon always, what's funny about Lyon is, as shaky as they may seem from season to season, they have that winning mentality that that. Honestly, it's like a light. Well, they're Lyon,
Yeah,
it's like they're lionesses,
yeah,
through and through. And it's like whatever the hurdle, they're able to to go past it. And I think they have that mental advantage over Barcelona, because they know that they have the upper hand, and it's up to Barcelona, because Lyon could, obviously they don't want that, but they could spend the next 20 years not winning anything, and they would still have their status would be untouched. Barcelona are the team that need to kind of I feel like, in order to really take their, not their place, but take the mantle, and take the what's the thing, the what,
the crown of the
yeah. And in the relay running, what's the name of the thing?
the baton.
The baton, thank you. Oh gosh. But yeah, in order to really take the baton from Lyon, I think they need to beat Lyon. It's kind of like Obi-Wan, Luke, Darth Vader, and the teacher, the student beats the master kind of thing. In order to really take that crown, they need to beat Lyon. That's like we said, the final hurdle. That's the final beast.
Yeah, I was a little worried that you were going to start talking about, again, the comparison with a certain men's team in the Champions League finals and Champions League that wears white. And I was a little worried that you were going to start to compare that winning mentality to that. And that's why I said don't, because, yeah, I mean, that really is what Lyon has been. They are closer to 10 UEFA Champions League titles with their 8 than any other team is to them at 8, because the next closest is
Yeah.
Frankfurt with 4. And since the inaugural final, since it was the UEFA Cup turned to the Champions League in 2010, they won their first in 2011. They made that final, lost the first final to a German team. And then since 2011, it's been all them. They have 4 of the top 10 goal scorers in the competition all time. We're going to talk about Wendy Renard at another point in this. But in 2006, she joined the club and she's been a part of 8 European wins, including the 5 straight as well. So, yes, it's all about them. Let's throw a little Barcelona thing at you again. We're going to jump back and forth between the two teams here because actually, before we get anything related to the game, the other big news this week was that Alexia Putellas agreed this week to a new contract, keeping her around until 2026. So a 2-season deal. She'll be 32 when the deal ends, which is, a fine age. They're 32-year-olds, I can say this from personal experience, are still in proper fit and they're fine. So how important was it to get the deal done, do you think, prior to the final? Do you think that doesn't matter? But I don't know. For me, at least, it feels calming to go into the final knowing that Alexia Putellas has already shaken the hands and put pen to paper on this contract extension.
Yeah, it's very much psychological in my opinion, giving the team a sort of cushion, a sort of safety, that well, Alexia is Barcelona. Barcelona Femení is Alexia. Like, as much as nowadays Aitana is considered the best player in the world, as much as Caroline Graham Hansen is also like a phenomenal and etc. Like there's this very specific like feel or vibe to Alexia because she is like a childhood childhood fan of Barcelona. There's like this spirit that she imbues the team with that is very uniquely hers. And, I think Barcelona wouldn't make sense, as it is right now without Alexia, and Alexia wouldn't make sense without Barcelona, to be honest. I mean, we've seen the rumors of her going to Washington Spirit and everything, but it always felt wrong, regardless. Again, regardless of who you support, which team you support, it's uh, like, for example, like Xavi playing for anyone other than Barcelona, it feels wrong. It feels wrong. Or I was trying to think of like someone else, some like Ryan Giggs playing for anyone other than Manchester United.
Yeah.
Some things, some players need to be committed, like lifelong players of a certain club because it just feels wrong otherwise.
Well,
And I think, yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say to your point, I think Aitana Bonmati, I agree. Like, I think she's the best player in the world. I mean, obviously the individual awards match that. And since her ACL injury, Alexia Putellas has still not yet been the same. It's been 2 years, and she's still not the same, 2-time Ballon d'Or winner before that, and who she was. But I think to your point, her legacy is so tied to this, we'll say, even era of Barcelona because she was a member of that team and one of the better players on the team when they became professionalized in 2017.
Exactly.
And to the point, she was the face of the team when they made their ascent. And I think that's so important to the legacy of this unit. Because again, Bonmati is the better player now, is the best player, I think, best midfielder at least in world football on the women's side. And so when you're looking at the team as a whole, as you mentioned, you're starting to rattle off the name and say, this is a team and this team has been built. But again, the first face that we saw of this generation of the Barca team that could beat everybody else, that was all conquering, was Alexia Putellas. And so
Exactly.
to lose that face, because even Vicky Losada, who was the captain of those teams, the face of the team was still Alexia Putellas, right? Even though she wasn't
Exactly.
the locker room leader and the heart, she was still the face of it all. And yeah, to have her kind of, I know that they've left, managers have left, but the managers have not defined this era. I mean, with Geraldes already, I'm going to get to that, but he's going to the Washington Spirit anyway, win or lose. So with managers kind of coming in and going, and Jenny Hermoso having come and gone, kind of joining Atletico Madrid after the cycle had already begun, Alexia Putellas has been here through it all. And to
Yeah,
your
exactly.
point, to have her leave where, even though she's not who she was, while she still is 30 years old, that, close or could be close to the peak of her powers, it wasn't the time. So I could see her leaving in after that next contract when she's 32.
Yeah.
But there's still, I think, work to be done in this cycle for Barcelona.
Exactly. Actually, like the Spanish and the Portuguese as well. So like Spanish and Portuguese languages have like this word, mística, mística in Spanish, mística in Portuguese. And that is like that, the mysticism, so to speak, that is associated, like with that, in this case with Barcelona, and Alexia fully embodies that. And like she is, like you said, the face of this team, even if other players are like at a higher level now. But like she will always be like the face of this Barcelona that wins everything every year or almost every year.
Yeah, and the irony in this conversation, because I want to preview the game now, the irony in talking about Alexia Putellas at the start here is that the first Lyon name that I'm going to mention is Ada Hedgerberg, because she's the face of what I think this generation of Lyon was, because she was the Ballon d'Or, the first female Ballon d'Or winner, and she was that face. But she also had just come back from injuries. Since she won the Ballon d'Or, very much like Alexia Putellas, has never truly been healthy again and at her best either. And so she'll likely be starting on the bench in the way that Alexia Putellas will be starting on the bench. So it really is interesting that, right, the faces of these cycles are sitting on the bench. So that, again, helps us preview this game because, to your point, adding some context to this, Lyon have dominated 11th final overall again since 2010. We mentioned that, but they have also owned Barcelona in particular. 4-1 in 2019, 3-1 in 2022, and Barcelona were definitely the stronger side that year. I would say 2022 was the best version of this cycle for Barcelona that we've seen. And then 2017-18 was the last time Barca did make the semis of the competition. Who do you think beat them in both legs? It was Lyon. But this Lyon side, interestingly enough, has not been completely dominant either, though. And to your point, like they show up to it, but they're coming off a 2-1 win over PSG in the Cup. But they also have had to get by PSG in the semis, where they were down 2-0 in the first leg, but rally back to win 3-2 in the final 10 minutes. Then they won 2-1 in Paris. And when we're talking Lyon versus PSG, the first player I think I need to mention about Lyon is Diani, or Kerediatou Diani, because she moved from PSG to Lyon over the summer. She's been the healthy forward up top all season, with Hedgerberg having some injuries, then winger Delphine Cascarino just coming back as well. So without Mappy Lyon for Barcelona, and I know Mappy Lyon is not the best, defensive center back there is in the world, but her possession and ability to control and push that line forward does give Barcelona a sense of possession and control that they don't necessarily have with Engen and Paredes at the back. So how do you see Barcelona going about containing, because that's what you do. You don't stop her fully, but you contain Diani. So how do you think they're going to go about containing Diani in this matchup?
Okay, first off, I like that you highlighted Diani, because I think she's easily like for me a top 10 player in the world. I love her. I absolutely love her. I think it's very much, well, like you said, it's about containing her, not stopping her, because she's virtually unstoppable. But it's also about not focusing entirely on her, because these are two teams that are evenly matched up, in my opinion. Both have, like, it's extravagant how much quality they have on the bench, not just in their starting 11s, but also on the bench. And Diani is obviously like maybe the maximum example of that. And because she's got everything. She's technically skilled. She's got immense power. She's so fast, and she's a finisher. She can assist. I remember in her last season for PSG when Katoto was out on injury. She stepped up as the striker of the team when she had previously only been a winger. She stepped up and scored a buttload of goals, to keep PSG afloat. They didn't win the title, but, it showed just how much of a quality player she is. And, Paredes, she's not very fast, it's true, but I think that older players, more veteran players, they have like this intelligence to them and this experience to them where they're able to make up for their lack of speed or whatever else, with like knowing exactly where to position themselves and knowing exactly like when to time their runs and knowing exactly how to like place their foot or their leg in the right moment. And also she has on her side um, like this reformed Ingrid Engen who has like learned the position of center back like wonderfully. I think she's an even better center back than she is a
Yeah.
defensive midfielder, which is amazing because she showed up in the women's game as a very very promising defensive midfielder. She was one of the most promising in the world,
Mhm.
and now she is one of the best center backs in the world, and she's even better than she was a defensive native midfielder. And I think it's gonna have to be a lot of work from Lucy Bronze and Anna Bakia as well. If they're the ones who play, there's also maybe Rolfa to but Rolfa and Batia are both very quick, so I think that's an even matchup in my opinion. Depends on what Jonathan has thought up for the final, but I think it'll have to be a lot of work, not just from the fullbacks, but also, and this is very important, from the players who play ahead of the fullbacks, because like defensive work is so very important in a team. Having your wingers because Barcelona play in a traditional 4-3-3, so having your wingers fully support the fullbacks defensively, and it's like Barcelona or maybe the team that plays best in the world as a team, as this cohesive group of players that each know what to do individually in order to make, the group shine as a whole. And I think that's gonna have to be like the way to stop not just Diani, but Melchi de Mornay, I've got it in my notes. Wait. Melchi de Mornay, Cascarino, but also like, I mean, Danielle Van de Donk and the quality like is
Yeah.
immense because if you don't have the winger up there, you have Basha, Salma Basha, who is arguably the best left back in the world. I think she is like that's a funny duel actually for me because I think it's very much between her and Onabakia. So I think no offense to Barcelona fans, obviously, I think Salma Basha is maybe a step above her, but it's very much
Mhm.
an even matchup. And because you really can focus on a single player. And I know that Lyon won't focus on a single player because when you've got like this kind of team where everyone is world class,
Mhm.
focusing on a single player will lead to certain death because everyone can kill you in a multitude of ways.
Yeah. So due to time constraints, I'm kind of going to run through the entire field, and I'm going to throw a
Yeah,
lot at
sorry.
you, and you can kind of grab from that what you want because we got time for about two more little topics here. So for Barcelona up top, this would be a huge moment for Salma Pariello, who I expect to start in the middle up top, supported by Caroline Graham Hansen on the right wing. And the 20-year-old, again, a reminder, she's still just 20 years old. She has scored some huge goals, international stage as well, already in her career. She had 18 goals in 18 matches in Spain this year as well, so a little bit of volume. And again, a huge moment for a 20-year-old. So that is going to be a talking point, especially if she scores a goal or two in this game or has a big performance. And then moving to the midfield, Sonia Bampastar, who is the Lyon manager, she uses the American Lindsay Horan in that holding midfielder role. And obviously, Barcelona are likely, I would guess, very certainly countering with Kara Walsh, Patri, and Aitana Banmati as a midfield trio to deal with
Yeah.
that unit. So it'll be for Lyon, you'd expect they basically have an attacking midfielder, a midfield, we'll say box to box and a defensive midfielder, while Barcelona basically have the two defensive midfielders. But again, Patri is just to call her defensive midfielder and attacking midfielder is unfair. Patri is wherever you need her to be at all times and everything. And then we already did kind of focus on the defense for Barcelona because they have been really interesting with the choices that have had to be made. more than any other unit, I think, with, as we mentioned, Engren playing a bunch of center back in Mappy Leon's absence alongside Paredes. Then you have, as you mentioned, Lucy Bronze, Ralfo, and Bate to play the two fullback spots. And I would guess, I do believe in the final that Garlovdes will go with Bate at left back, Bronze at right back, and Ralfo on the left wing. Bronze, again, we don't even have time to get into this, but Bronze was a member of the team in 2019 against Barcelona with Lyon. So, again, that dynamic has now shifted and hopefully bring that confidence to the Barcelona side of things. And then also another thing to shout out is Wendy Renard is really, really dangerous on set pieces, and that is a concern for Barcelona because she's a real danger there. And then in net, I don't think it's a discussion point, but Cata Cole and Sandra Panos are the two keepers for Barcelona. Panos already knows she's leaving, and Cole has, since basically that time, become the 1A for most of the year. So you'd expect that Cole is the starter for this one. And then on the other side, Christian Endler is going to be in net for Lyon. And aside from Marta, I think we don't really talk that much about South American players, I think, in terms of women's football, but the Chilean Endler has been as good as they get in world football for a while in net. So certainly she could change this. So again, I don't really have time to go over like Caroline Grant-Hansen and Paradella and go over every single name, but of all of what I just thrown at you and some of those individual storylines and matchups, what jumps off the page to you from everything that I said up and down the field?
First off, I don't know who will play on the left wing, if it's going to be Rolfa or Mariona. I mean, Mariona just had an incredible game in the Copa de la Reina final. So, and maybe Honiton will do something weird like play Mariona as a false nine. I don't know. Like I've said this, I love Mariona. I love her style of play. I know a lot of people criticize her. Some have said that she has a low footballing IQ. That is nonsense. But for me, like the big matchup will always be in the midfield. I mean, that's where you lose games or win games. So, it's gonna be DVD, Orin, and Egorola, in my opinion, against Patri, Kira Walsh, and Aitana. And that is the matchup that will decide the game. Because that's where games are decided. It's a midfield. As talented as your forwards can be, as solid as your defense can be, the team that manages to take control of the game is usually, whether that be with the ball or without the ball, because those are different things, controlling the ball and controlling the game can be two very different things. But the team that manages to really feel more comfortable in the game, and that starts with midfield, that's the team that will win. So those three, if Lyon plays in a 4-3-3, they can also play like in a more of a 4-2-3-1, but that's still like kind of the same like structure in terms of players. So whoever controls the midfield most likely win the game. A couple of amazing midfields, by the way.
Yeah, this likely won't come up, but fun little story here. The two Vickies, as in Vicky Beccio for Lyon, just 20, and played more U21 European minutes than anyone else for Lyon. And then Vicky Lopez plays for the Barça Femení, and she played in all but 2 European matches despite being a 17-year-old. So again, I mentioned Pariello could be a huge player. We're talking about at 20. But when Barcelona, if they go down in this game and they're throwing on options late, it's going to be really interesting because, yeah, we talked about it already, but they could throw on the face of the franchise, if you will, and Alexia Putellas and a 17-year-old Vicky Lopez. And what is, I think, an either headline there if they wind up being the winner or changing that match.
And Bruna Villamala and Claudia Pina. I mean, wow.
Yeah, Barcelona have both, again, young, and the way that both these teams, I think, are built is that you look up and down their rosters, and they're built in a similar way, that there are homegrowns and experienced players, there are young homegrown players, and they also go out and, like Barcelona did with Kara Walsh, where they spend top dollar, world transfer fee on her. All right, so last question for you. It's got a lot to get to go. So it's a matter of how can Barcelona win this match, and I think we've been talking about how this Lyon team and this Barcelona team probably are not the strongest iterations of what we've even seen from both of them in the last 5 seasons. But the resolve of both these teams this year, I talked about Lyon and their comeback against PSG, but Barcelona last season coming back against Wolfsburg in the final, down 2-0 at halftime, coming back 3-2 winners. And then after the 1-0 home loss to Chelsea in the semis, coming back and taking care of business at Stamford Bridge 2-0. So like Lyon, as I said, this is not the stronger version of Barcelona either, but do you like not only the way that they've been up to it when they've needed to be and kind of risen their level when they've needed to in this last year, but also, is there a mentality going in? And I guess you kind of already said it in that the first 10 minutes to me, more even than other matchups, and I know that matters in finals, the first 10 minutes, but no, when I really say that the first 10 minutes of this final seem like it could decide the final, I can't reiterate that enough.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened last time. If a team comes in shaky, looking shaky, feeling shaky, because it's very much, just the other day, I think it was just Fabregas who was saying, you can have the best tactics, the best technical skills, but it's on the head. It's all in the head, man. So it's like whatever team comes in looking the strongest, and that will definitely, show in the first 10 minutes, that will be the team that will have the upper hand for most of the rest of the game. Things can happen, obviously. Comebacks can happen. Barcelona have had comebacks. Lyon have had comebacks. But those first 10 minutes can definitely be key. And, both have that natural winning mentality. Lyon from all these years of winning. Barcelona from, building up that winning, tradition. I think honestly, I cannot predict a winner. It's going to be a really tight one. It could even end 5-0 for one of it or the other, but I think it's unpredictable. I think it's like the most unpredictable final we've had so far. And I think that's the beauty of the game, by the way, and the beauty of it. But I think those 10 minutes can really make or break either team.
Well, this is the Barcelona podcast, so whether you're asking me to watch Real Madrid against Dortmund or asking me to watch Femení against Lyon, I would much rather watch the Women's Champions League final this season than the men's final. Just tell me Dortmund won after is how I feel about the men's final. So, Ines, I still do, speaking of the men's game, have to talk about Hansi Flick before we go. So I don't want to bore you with all that drama. So I do look forward to chatting with you again soon. Hopefully after a Barcelona Femení victory against Lyon. But as always, Ines, I'm really glad at least that the Femení have allowed us to make this an annual tradition where you get to come on and we talk about the Femení before the Champions League Final Four afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on. And I do hope we get to talk again soon. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ines. All right. Again, thanks to Ines for coming on because I know it's me and my face. Here I am on the camera if you're watching on YouTube. But again, you hear me on the podcast as well, being just by myself now because I've got to talk about the Hansi Flick stuff because it's too important because, by the time we have a next show where I'm talking about the men's first team, other than the match review against Sevilla, maybe Hansi Flick has already been decided to be Barcelona's manager. Maybe he already has because there are reports that are coming out that feel like they have quite a bit of weight. Deco and Boyan have spoken with him this week. That is pretty much all but confirmed about the former Bayern Munich, I should say, boss taking over. And we have heard from Sky Sport Germany's Florian Plettenberg saying that there is a verbal agreement already. Laporta is 100% convinced by him. And we have been hearing where there's smoke, there is fire. I've said this many times when it comes to Barcelona news that can't believe everything. But when you hear the same names repeated over and over again, or you hear Laporta linked to a German name, we have heard that it's Flick. And Tuchel, we've heard the German names and Laporta kind of expecting to want to bring them in anyway. And we don't know where things have gone on behind the scenes. We don't know where leaks are coming from, but they always come from Barcelona. You know that. So the initial rumors were that Deco and Boyan were in Dublin for the Europa League final, which everything can be true. They also could be meeting with Flick and then catching the Europa League final yesterday, which was kind of amazing as an little aside with Bayer Leverkusen coming out and getting absolutely dismantled by Atlanta to end their unbeaten streak. But that's what happens. That's football, and especially in finals, anything really can happen. And there's a reason why the other team is there too. It's not just about the one team that everyone's talking about coming in. So the other stuff now, Sport has jumped on here, of course, and Sport, one of the Catalan papers that does get some stuff right, but also produces so much content where they really just throw stuff out there. Like today, they said that he prefers a simpler style of play, similar to Carlo Ancelotti, which, of course, you say those kind of things just to kind of give some kind of broad stroke that isn't necessarily true, that he wouldn't be burdened by the tactical aspects, which was the quote. And I'm not entirely sure about that. And, the purist who's come on the show before, if Hansi Flick winds up being manager, of course, that is a guest that you can expect likely to come on because he has covered Flick in such detail. So I would send you over once you're done with this to head over to the Purist and his channel and going over what Hansi Flick was to Bayern Munich and the German national team, some of the things that worked, some of the things that didn't work. So yeah, I mean, you expect with with Flick. So you'd expect with Flick to see a lot of pressing, and I thought that Barcelona, for losing Busquets, as I've said, this is one of my critiques of Xavi, and De Jong as a whole is two of the prime figures as we speak about this press, then Lewandowski up top as well. The press was not as good as it was even last season, and especially not as good as it was 2 years ago. So when Barcelona, and I think this works for all high-level teams who want to possess the ball, if your press is not one of the top 5 in world football, then you're not going to be able to compete for the Champions League trophy, because it has got to be, especially if you're playing that high line, you're playing a lot of possession, and you want to trust the technical abilities of your team. You either change what you're doing, or your press is good enough to suffocate rivals in that final third. And I don't think this team was. And my question, I think, with Xavi in that press, because I think the ideas are right. I've always supported him since 2021, since he arrived. The ideas for him on the press have been right, and there are times when everybody's fit and it looks really good, especially with Gavi missing. I don't know if I could really even judge for so much of this year whether the press for Xavi was a pass or fail, but that is something that clearly Flick would be pushing from day one. And then my follow-up to that would be, what kind of power would then Flick have in saying, these are the players I want to work with my press? So it's a player who may not be so technical, but is a hardworking forward on the press. And let's say that, Hansi Flick prioritizes that kind of player over another one. Like Nico Williams is an all-around really good player, and he does work really hard on an athletic club press, but that athletic club press isn't necessarily high pressure up the field. They do often sit in a medium block or even a low block at times and allow Nico Williams to get forward. So that would be a challenge I think he'd be up to, that being Nico. And that's, again, pie in the sky saying, okay, well, Barcelona can break in Nico Williams. But you know what I mean? And it just means that you need to reevaluate the transfers based on the manager. My concern would be Barcelona won't do that. They're going to say, hey, we got our manager. Here are your pieces, especially because Lewandowski makes what he makes. De Jong makes what he makes. So here's what you have to work with, and bring your ideas and the press and all that stuff. Bring that here, enhance our squad the way that we're asking you to, with the players that you may not have a say in potentially replacing or bringing in. Now, Barcelona also have the Nike stuff, and if they get money for Barca Studios, which Kool-Aids are still waiting on, Socios are still waiting on, the board is still waiting on, and if everything goes right, as we said with the money, Barca can get back to the 1-for-1, and the number I saw that was pretty optimistic, they would go from just around less than 230 on the wage bill right now, and they would jump back up to around 500 million euros as the wage bill, which, as we said, it's not about the actual revenue and profit that Barcelona makes. It is actually about the money that was coming in that you can use for the wage bill based on total revenue. So for Barcelona, getting that money in would jump the wage bill up as soon as next season already. And that is even more important than keeping Xavi or bringing in Flick or anything like that. So this story with Flick, it might even be finalized within the week. I don't think so, because before Sevilla, at least, I think Xavi is still the manager of FC Barcelona. So I will certainly talk to you plenty this weekend. A lot to do, of course. The Femení, win or lose, I'm going to be doing a match review for that. And then the next day, we'll do a match review for Barcelona against Sevilla as well. If the Femení wind up falling in that matchup, I will likely take a week break, because give myself a minute, unless, again, Flick is announced and transfers, and who knows, you know me, I build my schedule and my vacation around how silly Barcelona can be from summer to summer. So anyway, I hope they give me a little bit of a week off. So that said, this weekend, look out for all those match reviews and all that content. But patrons, thanks so much for always helping me make these shows. Twitter, Instagram, also find Ines on Twitter as well, or X, whatever it's called, down in the description of show notes. Close Facebook group, Discord, and then a good rating on the podcast apps and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Those are the easiest and best ways to help the show. Most importantly, though, thanks so much for listening to the Barcelona podcast. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. And voice the Barca.